The resignation of Bahujan Samaj Party chief Mayawati from her Rajya Sabha seat on Tuesday provided the high drama in the opening days of Parliament's monsoon session. But it was easy to understand why she is giving up the little she has in Parliament in order to raise her political profile. In fact, as her joined other opposition leaders to line up moral support for her, Rashtriya Janata Dal President Lalu Prasad inadvertently highlighted the position of weakness from which she is launching her fight back. He would help get her re-elected to the Rajya Sabha from Bihar, he said. The BSP, with just 19 seats in the 403-member Uttar Pradesh Assembly, does not have sufficient numbers to ensure the former UP Chief Minister's re-election, something she would have needed less than a year from now anyway. But Ms. Mayawati's fight is not for a seat in the House, it is for her very relevance. Successive elections have confirmed the squeeze. From being presumed to be both the prime ministerial candidate of the Third Front in 2009 and the beneficiary in 2017 of the cracks in the Samajwadi Party and the expected blowback of the Narendra Modi government's demonetization exercise, she now finds herself to be little more than an aside. RS Deputy Chairperson asks Mayawati to withdraw resignation. Ms. Mayawati herself gave away her predicament by the choice of issue she sought extra time for on the floor of the House, denial of permission for a Dalit procession in Saharanpur on April 14, B.R. Ambedkar's birth anniversary. If on the one hand the BSP finds the BJP taking away large segments of the Dalit vote, the rise of forces like the Bhim army in Saharanpur with a more fiery Dalit assertion threatens to leave her behind. The challenge for her is nothing less than crafting the next chapter in the BSP's evolution. The party had first tasted electoral success under Kanshi Ram's mentorship, with a call for an alliance of the oppressed, along caste, gender and religious lines, to transform society and politics so that they were not simply accommodated through symbolic handouts, but the world around them progressed rapidly for them to win their rightful political space. This aspiration was worked into a strategy of forcing political instability, so that every churn would give the BSP a shot at expanding its base. The next phase took place on Ms. Mayawati's watch when she crafted a bottom-up rainbow coalition of Dalits, Muslims and upper castes, and got a full majority in the 2007 state elections. With its skillful rewrite of the holding majoritarian narrative and its organizational aggression, the BJP has cherry-picked from that coalition, so much so that the BSP is in an existential struggle to hold on to its core base. More than any other party, the BSP has relied as much on its organization as on its modernizing message. She needs to refresh both. Administration's decision to slap sanctions on 18 Iranian individuals and entities on Tuesday, only a day after it certified to Congress that Tehran was compliant with the conditions of the nuclear deal, sums up its strategic resolve in taking on the Islamic Republic and the tactical dilemma it faces while doing so. It is no secret that President Donald Trump has been critical of the Iran nuclear deal, which ended the international sanctions on Tehran in return for curbing its nuclear program. During the campaign, Mr. Trump had vowed to either kill or renegotiate the agreement. But as president, his options are limited with Iran remaining compliant with the terms of the agreement. More important, it is not a bilateral pact. The nuclear deal was reached among 7 entities, including the US, Russia, Germany and Iran. Any unilateral move to withdraw from the agreement would hurt American interests as European countries are keen on expanding economic ties with Iran. This explains why a reluctant Mr. Trump has recertified the deal twice since his inauguration in January, but on both occasions, he slapped additional sanctions on Iran over its ballistic missile program and support for terrorism, signaling that the Obama-era detente with Tehran was over. Administration officials are now saying Iran may be compliant with the terms, but it is unquestionably in default of the spirit of the agreement. This is an overstretched argument, given that all international monitors say Iran remains committed to the deal. The logical next step of the nuclear agreement should have been an overall improvement in relations between the West and Tehran. Barack Obama had set the stage for such a policy overhaul, and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani had responded to it, but Mr. Trump, in 6 months, has taken Washington's Iran policy back to Republican neoconservatism. Besides sanctions, Mr. Trump has also endorsed the Saudi-led Sunni bloc's attempts to isolate Iran. His policy priorities are now clear. The administration will align with Saudi Arabia and Israel, continue to target Iran through sanctions, and even try to undermine the nuclear deal in the long term. This is a dangerous turn of events since the historic moment of April 2, 2015, when the framework for the nuclear pact was announced. But this policy of containing Iran could backfire, as Iran has already established itself as a rising regional power with substantial geopolitical clout. To stabilize Iraq, the US needs Iran's help, and there won't be a long-lasting peace deal in Syria without Iran's participation and cooperation. If the US is serious about working towards peace and stability in West Asia, it should reciprocate Iran's compliance with the nuclear deal, not punish it through additional sanctions. It should also act as a mediator between Saudi Arabia and Iran, instead of taking sides in a destabilizing Cold War in West Asia.